Hello YouTube. Alright guys, so I am coming to you today to talk about what I believe to be a bit of a systemic problem in YouTube reviews of knives in specific. When people talk about ergonomics, I feel that people very often miss some key aspects. And this all comes down to, I believe, an improper understanding of affordance and ergonomics in general. So, what I'm going to be talking to you guys about is that, and specifically affordance. So, affordance is the general term for the ability of a shape of an object to affect how it can be handled by an organism. Or manipulated by an organism. So, there are a couple different things that I want to talk to you guys about. The difference for specialization of a shape, or like general purpose shapes. Why are different grips, especially with like knives and stuff, important? What yields the most grip options as far as knife ergos go, and what do I prefer and why? To bring that all back to then affordance, so we have a better general understanding of how things work. So, specialized versus general purpose. This is jumping ahead, I guess. I'm not sure. Either way, a specialized shape is something that'll obviously help you to use it more effectively within that specific specialized thing. It's specialized. It's more special. General purpose is something that's more general purpose. The shape of a knife and the shapes of knives can affect their specialization. So for one example, we can go with this one knife I have right here. It's a cold steel AK-47, their large value version. I broke the tip here. Whatever. It doesn't affect the point. We can see right here that it's necked down pretty thin at the front of the handle and flares out, becoming much thicker at the back. So if I'm going to wrap my hand around this, you guys can see this is the type of grip where you tend to point with the knife, and it points straight through your hand, straight through your wrist, making it far more natural, much like if you were to just point at something. Yeah, it's very natural feeling as far as that. And people generally would agree this would be a knife that has fairly good ergonomics, and I won't disagree. It's very comfortable in that position, but that position only. You can see all of this finger notching and stuff. Puts your hands in the place where, put your fingers, pardon me, in the place where they want it to be. It just makes it so that your hand can't move around. It's locking it in place. It might be very comfortable, but it's gonna keep you doing this. So we could take a counter example. For instance, we'll go with this knife right here. This knife has a fairly broad, rounded this way profile in the grip. It makes it for fairly effective like punch grip use. Although putting your finger up here like this in the choil, you can use it again with that pointed grip. It becomes a fairly natural pointer and point-centric use. So you can see that these are more specialized for one purpose or another. We've got another one here, as we can see. This is a Spyderco bird. Pardon me, not Spyderco. A bird hawkbill. And you can see again, this is a pointed one. It makes it very good for pulling. That's fine. Again, this locks you into the grips. But it doesn't allow you to use it in other grips. If you were to, for instance, want to grip this way, this knife becomes substantially less comfortable. And the same thing would go for this one. It's substantially less comfortable. Not so much for this one, as it's just got it's blander. There's not much to it. It's not as specialized. So it allows you to have these multiple grips. So why are those multiple grips important? Well, for knife use, it really helps you to have an dynamic grip on your knife. If you can take your knife, right, and you can manipulate it in multiple different grips and grip holdings, you can use it in all of those respects. This is something that, like this pointing style blade, which is very popular in EDC, and it makes it very good for point centric. If you're going to be draw cutting on like a mat, it's pretty good. It points well, so it's stabby. This is more point centric grip. But the problem is, like with these more specialized grips, they tend to limit your ability to hold them in different manners. So if I want to pinch this right here in between my hand and just kind of rest my fingers on the edge, I really can't very well manipulate the articulation on this blade, because the way this is shaped, it locks my hand in. It's very specialized. It's very good at what it does. Counterexample is this Spyderco Resilience. I believe it's the Resilience. They don't put the name on the blade, so I can't really remember. It's one of their tenacious knives. This one right here on the opposite end of that, I can get this to move around a lot more in my hand, but it's got a very plain Jane, nothing special going on here. But it's just designed to be more useful in multiple different grips. This means that a knife, for instance, like this one right here, would be really, really good for general purpose things, because you can get different grips on it, as opposed to this one, where you can't hold it real comfortably this way. If you want to like bear down on something, you might need to choke up and change your grip, use it in a way that's not necessarily useful or designed in the blade. It just makes it not necessarily as generally useful. So what types of grips then yield specifically the most the most types of grips? If you're looking for the most type of gripability, your best bet is going to be, again, as I had kind of stated before, with the more plain the knife, the better you can grip it in multiple positions. But the main player is to worry about things such as kitchen knives. Kitchen knives are designed very specifically to have very, very high amount of different grips you can hold this in. That's why they tend to have very very plain grips. The more fancy they get, the less useful they become as a kitchen knife. So you generally want to look for something that's just a little more plain. This allows you to hold it in multiple grips. You can choke back, choke forward, do whatever you want. The handle isn't telling your hand tells the knife what to do. This one right here, we can see it's pretty straight. Straighter handles, as far as the angle between the blade and the handle itself, tend to lend themselves to more general purpose use. You can use them in greater varying numbers of things. If you wanted to cut on a surface, the straighter the grip, or even the more flared up this way it is, the better. But again, once you start flaring back, you're going to start specializing. It won't be so good for the point-centric work. So the straighter the blade, just in its general shape, the better. And I find personally that a more square shape of the blade, now I'm not talking like straight up just a box. You want to have some rounding or else it'll become uncomfortable. Like this one, for instance, right here, although it's rounded in the profile this way, it's very boxed on the edges and it's not the most comfortable grip. You want to have some rounding on the edges, but generally a box cross section, I've found, is the best as far as that goes, because you can grip it here, you can grip it here, you can grip it here, here, and just anywhere. Pinch it, use it like that. You know, have two fingers here, again pinching it, rest on the edge, use that for articulation. Whatever the case may be, a boxier cross section in the handle tends to yield that. It doesn't have to be exactly square, just a boxier cross section. We can see with this one right here, it's got a fairly boxy cross section, so it makes for pretty decent affordance. A great deal of different grips. Alright, so yes, the amount of affordance is the amount of manipulation. The more general purpose, the greater the affordance. So if I were to ever to say, I like this knife because it has a high level of affordance in the grip, it would be because of the general usability. Again, using kitchen knives as the gold standard. Okay, so that brings me then to, what do I prefer? Do I prefer this type of specialization, or in the likes like something like this, or do I prefer the more general purpose knife? Well, for EDC, this fairly pointed and point-centric grip is fantastic. I'd never argue there, but I don't tend to use my knives so much in the EDC role, cutting paper on a board or cutting through cardboard, something along those lines. And I don't stab people very much, so this very natural. This is a very high affordance blade, by the way, because you can point with it, you can punch or hammer grip it. You can pinch it this way. This is one of the better knives that I have as far as that goes. Hold it this way, this way, this way. High affordance. I like the high affordance knives. In fact, one of my favorite knives is this little cheap one right here, made by Cold Steel. This is their Secret Edge. Let's see if you can't get that. No, it's the Cold Steel Secret Edge. It has a very, fairly square, flat cross section. It's not the most necessarily comfortable for doing hard utility work, but it's a very dynamic blade in the hand. I can hold it a great deal of different ways. It makes it very useful for things like whittling, or, you can pinch it right here, and then it allows you to do things like this, where you just take whatever you're cutting and bring it straight down to the board. As you can see, there's nothing interfering with that. I can then pinch up on it and get some fine stuff done. Make some fancy shapes and stuff along those lines. So I prefer the high affordance blades. Now, the more rounded blades are, again, they're very specialized to the punch grip. You really want an oblong type or squarer cross section. That's what I find to be the best for me. It's the most universally useful, and it's generally comfortable enough, I found, for long use, as long as it's well rounded and is pretty well made. But the ergonomics are not just its ability to melt into the hand. That's only a small part of it. The amount of affordance is a major part of what the ergonomics, the general shape of the blade, will dictate, and the ability to use it in multiple grips well versus a few grips really well is important to factor in. The most ergonomic blade is not this one. I found that the most ergonomic blade I have is not even necessarily this one. This one is very high affordance, but it doesn't melt into my hand very well. But it's this one right here. It's kind of neutral. It's in between. It's not super duper unspecialized, because the hand is kind of specialized, but it's not super duper uber specialized because, well, I want to use it for multiple things. Okay, guys. Hope that clears some things up, enlightens you a little bit if you didn't already know this. It's one of those things that's self-evident once you think about it, but you have to think about it. You can't just say, oh, it's comfortable in my hand is the most ergonomic. That might not necessarily be the case. It might be very comfortable in your hand, but it might not necessarily be the most ergonomic because it's super duper low affordance. Okay, guys, thanks for watching, sticking with me. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.